Imagine you're in an important meeting when suddenly your boss turns to you and asks, "What's your take on this?" Your mind goes blank. Your heart starts racing. You fumble for words, and what comes out sounds nothing like the brilliant thoughts you had just moments before. Or picture this. You're at a networking event, and someone asks you to describe what you do. Instead of delivering a clear, compelling response, you ramble for 2 minutes about your job duties, watching their eyes glaze over. Sound familiar? You're not alone. In fact, studies show that 75% of people fear public speaking more than death itself. But here's what's even more shocking. Most of us struggle not just with formal presentations, but with everyday spontaneous communication. What if I told you there's a way to transform these awkward moments into opportunities to shine? What if you could think faster, speak clearer, and communicate with confidence in any situation? Today we're diving deep into Think Faster, Talk Smarter by Matt Abrahams, a Stanford lecturer who has spent decades studying the science of spontaneous communication. This isn't just another communication book. It's a practical guide that reveals the hidden patterns behind effective impromptu speaking. By the end of this video, you'll discover the exact framework successful leaders use to communicate brilliantly on the spot, the psychological tricks that eliminate anxiety, and the simple techniques that will make you sound smarter in every conversation. Chapter 1. The Spontaneous Speaking Challenge. Let's start with a reality check. According to Abrahams, we spend approximately 65% of our communication time in spontaneous situations, answering questions, giving feedback, making small talk, or responding to unexpected requests. Yet most of us have never been taught how to handle these moments effectively. The author identifies what he calls the spontaneous speaking paradox. When we have time to prepare, we often perform well, but when we're put on the spot, even the most articulate people can crumble. Why does this happen? Abrahams explains that spontaneous speaking triggers our brain's threat detection system. When we're caught off guard, our amygdala, the brain's alarm system, perceives the situation as dangerous. This activates our fight-or-flight response, flooding our system with stress hormones that literally hijack our ability to think clearly. Think about a job interview where you're asked an unexpected question. Your mouth feels dry, your thoughts scatter, and you might even forget your own accomplishments. This isn't a character flaw. It's biology working against you. But here's the breakthrough. Abrahams discovered that the most effective communicators don't avoid these situations. They reframe them entirely. Instead of seeing spontaneous speaking as a threat, they view it as an opportunity to connect, influence, and add value. The author shares a powerful insight from his research. The goal of spontaneous speaking isn't perfection, it's connection. When you shift your focus from trying to sound perfect to genuinely trying to help your audience, everything changes. Consider Sarah, a software engineer who dreaded team meetings. Whenever her manager asked for updates, she would stumble through technical jargon, leaving everyone confused. After applying Abraham's principles, she learned to focus on what her colleagues needed to know rather than what she wanted to say. The result? Her updates became clear, engaging, and she was eventually promoted to team lead. The key lesson here is that spontaneous speaking isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the right mindset and the proper tools to organize your thoughts quickly and clearly. Chapter 2. The Anxiety Solution. Managing your mental state. Before we can think faster and talk smarter, we need to address the elephant in the room: anxiety. Abrahams reveals that anxiety isn't just uncomfortable, it's the single biggest barrier to effective spontaneous communication. The author introduces what he calls the anxiety reframe technique. Instead of trying to eliminate nervousness completely, which is nearly impossible, successful speakers learn to channel that energy productively. Here's the science. When you're nervous, your body produces adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals can either paralyze you or energize you. The difference lies in how you interpret the sensation. Abraham suggests a simple but powerful reframe. Instead of telling yourself, "I'm nervous," say, "I'm excited." This isn't just positive thinking. It's backed by research from Harvard psychologist Alison Wood Brooks. When people reframe anxiety as excitement, they perform significantly better because both emotions involve high arousal. But excitement is associated with opportunity, rather than threat. The author also introduces the present moment awareness technique. When you feel anxiety building, focus intensely on your immediate environment. Notice 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can feel. This simple exercise pulls your mind out of future worries and grounds you in the present moment. But perhaps the most powerful anxiety management tool Abraham shares is the audience-first mindset. When you're worried about how you'll be perceived, you're focused inward. When you shift your attention to how you can serve your audience, anxiety naturally decreases. Consider Marcus, a marketing director who used to panic during client presentations. He would spend hours rehearsing perfect responses to potential questions, only to freeze when asked something unexpected. After learning to focus on genuinely helping clients solve their problems rather than impressing them with his expertise, his confidence soared and his client relationships improved dramatically. The author emphasizes that managing anxiety isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming comfortable with discomfort and learning to perform despite nervousness, not in the absence of it. Chapter 3. The Structure Secret. Organizing Thoughts on the Fly. Now we come to what Abrahams calls the game changer. Learning to structure your thoughts instantly. The author reveals that the difference between rambling and being articulate isn't intelligence or preparation time. It's having reliable frameworks you can use in any situation. The most powerful framework Abrahams teaches is the what so what, now what structure. Here's how it works. What? State the core information or point. So what? Explain why this matters to your audience. Now what? Suggest the next steps or implications. Let's see this in action. Imagine your boss asks about a project delay. Instead of launching into a detailed explanation of every obstacle, you could respond, what? The project will be delayed by 1 week due to client feedback requiring significant changes. So what? This means we'll need to adjust our launch timeline, but the final product will better meet customer needs. Now what? I recommend we communicate this to stakeholders today and use the extra time to conduct additional quality testing. Clear, concise, and actionable. That's the power of structure. Abrahams also introduces the problem, solution, benefit framework, perfect for answering challenging questions or proposing ideas. When someone asks how to improve team productivity, you might say, problem. Our team is spending too much time in unproductive meetings. Solution. I suggest we implement 15-minute stand-up meetings 3 times per week instead of hour-long weekly meetings. Benefit. This will give us better communication while freeing up 135 minutes per week for focused work. The author emphasizes that these frameworks aren't rigid templates. They're flexible tools that help you organize thoughts quickly under pressure. The key is practicing them until they become second nature. One of the most valuable insights Abraham shares is the signposting technique. Great spontaneous speakers use verbal signposts to guide their audience through their thinking. Phrases like, there are 3 key points to consider. Let me give you a specific example. Or, the most important thing to remember is, help listeners follow your logic and stay engaged. Think of signposting like giving directions. Instead of saying turn left, then go straight, then turn right, you say first, turn left at the traffic light, next continue straight for 2 blocks. Finally, turn right at the gas station. The information is the same, but the structure makes it infinitely easier to follow. The author shares the story of Jennifer, a finance manager who used to lose her audience during budget presentations. Her explanations were accurate but confusing. After learning to use clear structures and signposts, her presentations became so clear and compelling that she was asked to train other managers in financial communication. Commentary Chapter 4. The Listening Advantage. Hearing what's really being asked. Here's a revelation that might surprise you. Abrahams argues that thinking faster actually starts with listening better. Most people are so focused on formulating their response that they miss crucial information in the question or comment they're addressing. The author introduces the concept of active listening for response. This isn't just about being polite. It's about gathering the intelligence you need to craft a relevant, valuable response. When someone asks you a question, there are actually 3 questions embedded within it. 1. The literal question, what they said. 2. The underlying concern, what they really want to know. 3. The emotional context, how they're feeling about it. For example, when a colleague asks, "How's the Johnson project going?" They might literally want a status update, but the underlying concern could be, "Are we going to meet the deadline?" And the emotional context might be anxiety about client satisfaction. A surface-level response might be, "It's going fine," but a truly smart response addresses all 3 levels. We're on track to deliver by Friday as planned. I know you've been concerned about the tight timeline, and I'm confident we'll meet the client's expectations. In fact, the preliminary feedback has been very positive. Abrahams teaches a powerful listening technique called the pause and process method. When someone finishes speaking, resist the urge to respond immediately. Take a 2-second pause to process what you heard and consider what response would be most helpful. This brief pause accomplishes 3 things. It shows respect for the speaker, it gives you time to think, and it often makes you appear more thoughtful and confident. The author also reveals the clarifying question strategy. When you're unsure about what someone is really asking, don't guess. Ask. Questions like, "Are you looking for the technical details or the business impact?" Or, "Would it be helpful if I focus on the short-term or long-term implications?" Show engagement and ensure your response hits the mark. Consider David, a product manager who used to give lengthy technical explanations to every question, regardless of who was asking. After learning to listen for the real question behind the question, he began tailoring his responses to his audience. When engineers asked about features, he discussed technical specifications. When executives asked the same question, he focused on market impact and revenue potential. His communication effectiveness skyrocketed. The key insight Abrahams emphasizes is that listening isn't passive, it's the most active part of communication. When you truly listen, you're gathering the raw materials you need to craft responses that don't just answer questions, but solve problems and create connection. Chapter 5. The Confidence Code of Speaking with Authority and Authenticity. Confidence in spontaneous speaking isn't about feeling confident. It's about projecting confidence even when you don't feel it. Abrahams reveals that authentic confidence comes from preparation, not in content, but in process. The author introduces the Confident Communicator's Toolkit, a set of vocal and physical techniques that instantly make you sound more authoritative and credible. First, there's vocal confidence. Most people speak too quickly when nervous, which makes them sound uncertain. Abrahams recommends deliberately slowing down your speech by 10 to 15%. This simple adjustment makes you sound more thoughtful and in control. Next is the power of the pause. While many people fear silence, skilled speakers use strategic pauses to emphasize points and give themselves time to think. A well-timed pause before answering a challenging question can make you appear more thoughtful rather than caught off guard. Physical presence also plays a crucial role. The author explains that confident speakers maintain open body language, uncrossed arms, steady eye contact, and grounded posture. Even in video calls or phone conversations, your physical stance affects your vocal presence. Standing while speaking, even if others can't see you, can dramatically improve your vocal authority. But perhaps the most powerful confidence builder Abraham shares is what he calls intellectual humility. Confident speakers aren't afraid to say, "I don't know, but I'll find out," or "That's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment." This honest approach is far more credible than trying to bluff your way through unfamiliar territory. The author shares the story of Rachel, a marketing executive who used to panic when asked about areas outside her expertise during cross-functional meetings. She would either stay silent or give vague, unhelpful responses. After learning to embrace intellectual humility, she began responding with confidence. "That's outside my area of expertise, but I can connect you with our data analyst who would have those specific numbers. What I can tell you is how this impacts our customer acquisition strategy." This approach earned her respect as someone who was both knowledgeable and trustworthy. Abrahams also introduces the contribution mindset, the most powerful confidence builder of all. When you focus on what value you can add to the conversation rather than how you might be judged, confidence becomes natural. You're not performing, you're contributing. The author emphasizes that authentic confidence isn't about having all the answers. It's about being genuinely helpful with the knowledge and perspective you do have. When you approach spontaneous speaking as an opportunity to serve rather than to impress, both your confidence and your effectiveness soar. 1 or Chapter 6, The Persuasion Principles, Influencing and Inspiring in the Moment. The ultimate goal of thinking faster and talking smarter isn't just to avoid embarrassment. It's to create influence and inspire action. Abrahams reveals that the most powerful persuasion happens not in formal presentations, but in spontaneous moments when people's guards are down and they're most receptive to new ideas. The author introduces the spontaneous persuasion framework built on 3 pillars: credibility, logic, and emotion. Most people focus only on logic, presenting facts and arguments, but Abrahams shows that spontaneous persuasion requires all 3 elements working together. Credibility comes from demonstrating expertise and trustworthiness quickly. This might mean referencing relevant experience, acknowledging the complexity of an issue, or being transparent about limitations. When someone asks your opinion on a new marketing strategy, you might begin with, based on what I've seen work in similar situations, and keeping in mind that every market is different. Logic involves presenting clear reasoning and evidence. But in spontaneous situations, you don't have time for lengthy arguments. Abrahams teaches the 1 reason why technique. Focus on the single most compelling logical argument rather than overwhelming people with multiple points. If you're advocating for a new software system, don't list 15 benefits. Focus on the one that matters most to your audience. The primary reason I recommend this system is that it will reduce the manual data entry that currently takes your team 4 hours each week. Emotion is where spontaneous persuasion becomes truly powerful. The author explains that people make decisions emotionally and then justify them logically. In spontaneous moments, you have a unique opportunity to connect emotionally because the interaction feels more genuine and less salesy. Abrahams shares the future pacing technique. Help people envision the positive outcome of your suggestion. Instead of just describing a solution, paint a picture of how things will be better. Imagine walking into the office on Monday morning, knowing that all your team's project updates are automatically compiled and waiting in your inbox, giving you 30 minutes back to focus on strategy instead of status checking. The author also reveals the power of social proof in spontaneous persuasion, mentioning that other teams have seen great results with this approach, or this is becoming the industry standard, can be incredibly persuasive when delivered naturally in conversation. Consider Alex, a consultant who struggled to influence clients during informal discussions. His expertise was solid, but his spontaneous recommendations often fell flat. After learning to combine credibility markers, clear logic, and emotional connection, his influence grew dramatically. When a client mentioned staffing challenges instead of launching into a generic pitch, Alex would say, "I understand how frustrating that must be, especially when you're trying to maintain quality. I worked with a similar company last year who solved this exact problem by restructuring their onboarding process. Would you like to hear how they reduced their training time by 40% while actually improving new hire performance?" The key insight Abrahams emphasizes is that spontaneous persuasion isn't manipulation. It's genuinely helping people see possibilities they hadn't considered and giving them the motivation to act on good ideas. For free, Chapter 7, The Practice Protocol, Building Your Spontaneous Speaking Skills. Knowing the techniques is just the beginning. Abrahams dedicates significant attention to how to actually build these skills through deliberate practice. The author reveals that most people practice communication incorrectly. They rehearse prepared speeches, but never practice the spontaneous skills they actually need most. The cornerstone of Abraham's practice protocol is what he calls structured spontaneity, creating practice scenarios that mirror real-world unpredictability. Instead of practicing the same presentation repeatedly, you practice responding to unexpected questions, requests, and situations. The author introduces the random question method. Write down 20 to 30 questions related to your work or expertise on separate pieces of paper. Each day, randomly select 3 questions and practice answering them using the frameworks you've learned. The randomness simulates the unpredictability of real spontaneous speaking situations. For example, if you're in sales, your questions might include, why should we choose your solution over the competition? What's your biggest concern about this proposal? How do you handle client complaints? What trends are you seeing in the industry? By practicing random combinations of these questions, you develop the mental agility to think quickly in real situations. Abrahams also recommends the elevator pitch challenge. Every week, practice explaining different aspects of your work in 30 seconds or less. This might include your role, a recent project, a challenge you solved, or a goal you're working toward. The constraint of time forces you to identify the most essential information and present it clearly. The author emphasizes the importance of recording yourself during practice sessions. Most people are shocked when they first hear how they actually sound during spontaneous speaking. Common issues include speaking too quickly, using filler words excessively, or failing to pause between thoughts. Recording reveals these patterns and allows you to correct them. Progressive challenge is another key element of effective practice. Start with low-stakes situations and gradually work up to more challenging scenarios. Practice with friends before colleagues. Practice with colleagues before clients. Practice with familiar topics before unfamiliar ones. Abraham shares a story of Michael, an engineer who used to dread being called on during meetings. He began practicing by recording himself explaining technical concepts in simple terms for just 2 minutes each morning. Within 3 months, his confidence and clarity improved so dramatically that he was asked to lead client presentations. The author also introduces mindful practice, paying attention not just to what you say, but to how you feel during spontaneous speaking. Notice your physical sensations, emotional responses, and thought patterns. This awareness helps you recognize early warning signs of anxiety and apply your management techniques before panic sets in. The key insight Abrahams emphasizes is that spontaneous speaking skills require the same deliberate practice as any other expertise. Just as athletes practice specific skills repeatedly under game-like conditions, communicators must practice spontaneous skills in scenarios that mirror real-world demands. As we reach the end of our journey through Think Faster, Talk Smarter, let's reflect on the transformation that's possible when you master these skills. Imagine walking into any meeting, any conversation, any networking event with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever questions or challenges come your way. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming the most articulate, confident version of yourself. Matt Abrahams has shown us that spontaneous speaking isn't a talent you're born with or without. It's a skill set that can be developed through understanding, practice, and the right techniques. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's connection. It's being genuinely helpful to the people you're communicating with. When you shift your focus from trying to impress to trying to serve, everything changes. The frameworks we've explored today, from managing anxiety to structuring thoughts, from listening actively to speaking with confidence, these aren't just communication techniques. They're tools for career advancement, relationship building, and personal growth. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every meeting is a chance to apply these principles. Every unexpected question is a moment to demonstrate your growth as a communicator. Your journey to thinking faster and talking smarter starts now. Which of these techniques will you commit to practicing this week? How will you use these insights to transform your next spontaneous speaking opportunity into a moment of connection and influence? If this video has opened your eyes to the power of spontaneous communication, make sure to subscribe for more powerful book summaries that will change your mindset and accelerate your success. Hit that notification bell so you never miss insights that could transform your career and your life. What spontaneous speaking situation used to intimidate you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Your biggest challenge might be the topic of our next video. Remember, the person who can think faster and talk smarter in any situation isn't just a better communicator. They're a leader, an influencer, and someone others turn to when it matters most. That person can be you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue building the skills that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary.